Never mind, JK. Moving along. Love, love, love. It was just starting to feel very tedious, so no thank you. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about some friggin' book series. We're gonna check in and see how I'm doing so far this year. Okay, I just had to go double check at the end of last year where I was as far as how many series I was in the middle of, and it was 32. And I did have a goal of getting 5 series completed this year, and I've already done that. I've actually finished 7, and I'm now in the middle of 30. There are 25 that are like works in progress that I'm working through that like have books available that I could continue reading and I just haven't. And then there are 5 that I'm caught up with. Like the series isn't finished, so it can't count as completed, but I have read up to what is available currently. I have DNF'd 8 series so far this year, and I had for my like total to start, like series I'm interested in starting, I had 26 at the start of the year, and now I have 24. I've either started and finished, started and caught up, or started and DNF'd a couple of those. But then I've also added more to that list as well. So the 7 that I have finished, let me get into those first. And a couple of them are like novella ones, so, you know, is that cheating? I mean, technically no, but whatever. The first one is such a series, the Eternally Tethered series by Christina C. Jones. Haunted, Coveted, and Restored. I read all of those. Those are novellas. They're like paranormal kind of fantasy-ish, but in a contemporary setting, but with like magical lore and things and magical creatures. And then the next one that I completed was the Arrows trilogy by Mercedes Lackey. Buddy read that in the beginning of the year with Elle and Monet, and we loved the first book, all 3 of us, and then did not so much love the second or third. Oh my god, as per usual, I just fucking sneezed like crazy. I know I look like I'm crying. I don't know if it's the lights or what, but every time I record almost, it's like 98% of the time when I'm recording, I have some massive sneeze. Oh my god. Anyway, Arrows trilogy, yeah. Arrows of the Queen, Arrows Flight, and Arrows Fall. Finished that. And now my nose is already... Also, I probably sound a little congested still. I had a sinus procedure, like an outpatient procedure last week, and I'm not all mucusy like I was, but I'm getting like a little congested here and there. These aren't necessarily in order either, I'm realizing, as I'm going through these, because I definitely finished the Arrows trilogy first, and then Eternally Tethered wasn't until later in the year. But then I also did finish the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. That is a historical, gothic historical fiction. Oh, and the Arrows trilogy is fantasy. It's like classic fantasy. But yeah, Cemetery of Forgotten Books. I had read the first 3 books, had not finished out the series with the 4th book, and then there's also a collection of short stories that's not necessarily like part of the series, but it's from the series. And I read all of those. I reread the first 3, finally read the 4th one, and then read the short stories. Love, love, love. One of my all-time favorite book series of my life. Menagerie by Rachel Vincent is a trilogy, a adult fantasy, and I really found the first book, Menagerie, to be super fun. Very fucked up. Like all kinds of content warnings, trigger warnings, torture, confinement, slavery, enslavement, all the things. Xenophobia, hardcore, just sexual assault, threats, and like off-page happening, like you know it happened, but we're not there. But yeah, just all kinds of shit. But yeah, the first one was kind of just like popcorn, entertaining, like soap opera drama, you know, think like CW show that you just can't stop watching despite the ridiculous dramatics of it all. But then the second one was like, less so. It was kind of just repeating the first one a little bit. And then the third one just kind of killed it for me. If the third one had been similar to the second one, I probably would have wanted to buy a copy of all these books just to have them as like palate cleansers, because I've read through them so fast. And like I said, they're just entertaining nonsense. But the third one just was kind of like boring and I didn't like it. So, yeah, bummer. The Books of Amba duology by Tasha Suri. I believe I started and finished that. Or I don't remember Empire of Sand if I read it at the end of last year. At any rate, I finished it. So cool. Love that for me. And then another novella series was Holidays with the Wongs by Jackie Lau. I had read the first 3, I think. Definitely the first 2 last year. And I either had just the last 2 or just the last one and finished that out. They're fine. Contemporary romance, novellas, a little bit of smutty times, but not excessive, really, and very short, sweet, very cute, just little contemporary romances around the holidays. So yeah, those are the 7 that I finished, yay, and caught up with, where like there's not currently any additional books. Most of these are ones most of them except for one, I think, are books that I started. It's like first books in a series. Except for the first one, which is the Ending Fire trilogy by Sada El Arifi, The Final Strife, and I got caught up with The Battle Drum, book 2 that came out. And then the other ones, there are ones that I started this year and I'm planning to continue, but waiting for the rest. The Falcon and the Nightingale series by Stephen Arion, the first book being The Judas Blossom. Read that, really enjoyed it. This next one, I don't know if I'm going to continue. And actually, I'm incorrect. Book 2 is available. So this actually would be in progress. So never mind, JK. Moving along. So actually the next one then, so there's only 4 that I'm caught up with then. And that makes Work in Progress 26. At any rate, the next one would be Son of Blood and Ruin by Marielle Lares, the first book being Son of Blood and Ruin. I don't know if that's the series name, actually, but that was the first book. I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. I was expecting and hoping to, like, really love it and be obsessed. But it kind of fell off a little bit towards the end, but I still liked it enough where I'm definitely continuing with the series. And then another one that I finished recently, the Tales of the Plains series by David Ragg, the first book being The Hunters, which I have a copy of on its way to me. So enjoyed that, yay. And the ones that I have decided to DNF. So this first one, I just don't know if it's going to continue or not. Perhaps at some point. I could just ask him, but it's by Antoine Bondelet, the Tales from Essoan series, the first book being The Kishi, which I read years and years ago. I have a copy right there, but I just haven't heard him talk about it recently. I do sometimes forget to read the newsletter, so maybe I've just missed it. But yeah, that one, and I'm more interested in the other series by him, the young adult one, and then the other, the Sky Pirates one. So that one I'm just kind of not as interested in anymore anyway, but I haven't heard anything about it in a while either. And then Blood Grace by Vela Roth. This is one that I picked up this year, and I read the first book, and I started the second book, and I think that was it, right? Yeah, I DNF'd the second book. I think. No. I read the second book. I DNF'd the third one. That's what it was. It was too slow still at that point. I didn't mind the first book being really slow burn, getting to know the characters, building up the romance. And the second book even, like, it's a longer book series, so like the plot, the larger politics of the world were kind of taking a while, but I was like, okay, whatever. But then book 3 was just more of it, and it was starting to feel tedious. It was just starting to feel very tedious. So, no thank you. So disappointing though, because I was set up in book 1 to like love this fantasy romance series, but no can do. Another fantasy, adult fantasy, paranormal kind of, Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco. I read that first book and it was fine, but definitely didn't care enough to continue. This one's kind of a bummer because I do like the writing style, but it's novellas also. I could read them. They're very quick. But the last one that I read, I just didn't really care. I was just not invested anymore. The Singing Hills cycle by Nee Vo. Empress of Salt and Fortune is the first one. Really like that. When the Tiger Comes Down the Mountain. Loved that one. And then Into the Riverlands is the third one that I just was kind of like, I don't know. So, don't care enough. Another one that I picked up this year, and then I actually DNF'd the very first book, and so officially I'm DNFing the series, but I barely started it. Titan's Forest by Thariah Dyer. Sounded so fucking cool, the premise, and the fucking covers of these books. Oh my Jesus. The artwork is just stunning, and I really wanted to love it, but talk about dense, and I just was not getting gripped by any of the characters. I read a fair amount into the first book, Crossroads of the Crossroads of the Canopy, but then I just started skim reading to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm not reading this anymore, so I DNF'd it. And then a fantasy that I think is, I can't remember if it's considered young adult or like new adultish or what, or adult. I think it's young adult, but Daughters of Izdihar by Hadir Elspy. I read it. I didn't care. I did not really like the character work all that much. And so DNF, but it was just that first book. And then The Winter Blood by D.M. Lurie, the first book being the EOS Key. Really wanted to love this too. Contemporary paranormal, vampires and things. And it wasn't one that I hated or anything like that. It was just very like, for me. I wasn't gripped by the characters or the plot enough to want to continue. And a huge bummer for me, Dragonscale Society by L.R. Lamb. First book being Dragonfall. No, it was so disappointing because I wanted to love that so much. It sounded so cool, but it was just a disappointment for me personally. I could see a lot of people really loving most of these. This one especially, I could see a lot of people really having a fun time with it. Just not the book for me. So that's that, the ones I finished, caught up on, and DNF'd. I'm not going to go through all of the ones that I'm in progress with because there's, a shit ton. That is the deal. Love that for me. I think I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I completed my goal of finishing at least 5, and hopefully I'll finish at least one more. There's other ones that, like, I'm, in progress with that I could, like, get caught up in that have books out to finish, but, you know me. Can't do that. That would make too much sense. As a fantasy reader, it's just kind of something I like to keep track of, is the series, because we are always in the middle of, I don't know anybody who isn't in the middle of at least a dozen, at the very least a dozen series. That's like, I'd be impressed if someone only has a dozen that they're in the middle of and is an avid fantasy reader. It just happens. There's new ones that you're like, oh, I want to check that out. And then you like, and you're like, okay, I want to continue that series. And I'm just not good at waiting until series are completed. The FOMO gets me too much. When, like, the premise sounds, like, so cool, I'm like, no, I gotta check it out. It is what it is. Let me know how you're doing, if you are an avid fantasy reader as well, or, like, romance reader. I know sometimes those have a lot of series, too. Let me know how you're doing, how you're feeling, if it's something that you even really pay attention to. Because, you don't have to, by any means. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.